Hello.
Hello!
Hello,
How are
hello.
you?
So exciting.
Oh my God, this is so exciting, and it's just bam, bam, bam. It just
Yeah,
doesn't stop, right? Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
thank you for joining, Claudia. I appreciate it. The whole purpose of this session was we're at this point in history where cannabis is scaling rapidly. You're working for a company that's opening up retail and opening up processing facilities. It seems like every other week at this point,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
and you're at a point now where you also have a workforce, that light industrial retail background that's actively looking for work because so much has been shut down.
Absolutely.
So the idea is trying to figure out what what do you look for when trying to hire somebody for this industry in operations. And I look at the three-legged stool of operations: retail, processing, and cultivation. So before we get to that real quick, you want to just share just your quick story, who you are and your background and what you do in the space?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Klaudia Jakubiak, and I am the head of HR at Cloud Cannabis. Currently, we have 3 dispensaries. We just opened up the manufacturing leg of the business. Probably going to have about 10 dispensaries by the end of the year. And then we're
Wow.
also opening up cultivation and processing. So a lot of movement, but it's really exciting. My background, I actually come from General Motors, so automotive and then hospitality. And cannabis is something new to me, but it's an exciting industry to be in, to say the least.
I mean, a true trailblazer, as an HR leader in this space. So when you started, there were probably like 30 employees. There's now like almost 100 or so, and there'll probably be several hundred here by the end of the year. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. Yep.
Wow. So when you came into the space, for yourself and your own sort of personal journey, I mean, General Motors is, I would like to say, an old world company. It's been around for a long time. It's kind of this behemoth, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What has the transition been like from that world with a blueprint and SOPs to this world as an HR leader?
It's been quite interesting. I think, when you come into this space, you really have to understand the expectations, and the expectations are there's not a playbook, so to speak. So you are hitting the ground running, you're creating the foundation, and you're building from the ground up. So I think, adaptability and adaptability to change is huge in order to succeed in this industry.
I agree with that. And I hinted on it earlier at the beginning of the session, but this industry constantly pivots. And in a mature HR organization, there's something called change management,
Yep.
right? But change management in this one literally is a day-to-day thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So being able to handle that and stay focused, when you don't really know what's going on, but you're there and you're going to give it your best shot. Right. So
Yeah.
I've heard all different types of questions from people in the space asking about who should I hire in my retail store? Is it quick service restaurant? Is it high end retail? What should I be looking for? Is it Starbucks? Right.
Yep.
Have you kind of figured out any whether let's put it in 2 buckets. There's specific type of retail, and then there's like the intangibles you wouldn't see on a resume. Is there any specific type of like retail background that you see have some type of crossover into the space?
Well, one thing that I will say that I find absolutely just so fascinating with this industry is it really doesn't matter what your work experience and your background has been, because you can find your home in cannabis, right? When I look at dispensaries, when I'm recruiting for dispensaries, someone who has retail background, that's really transferable, as well as hospitality. It's like that service, and they're connecting with customers, guests. I think that background is really important. But then when you look at manufacturing, someone who comes from automotive, they have a lot of transferable skill sets. And I think someone who comes from an industry that does have best practices in place and they can bring that into the cannabis space, I think that is very, very valuable. And there's just, like I said, so much crossover. You can really look at a multitude of industries and see how that translates into cannabis, specifically for a job that you're looking for, whether it is within retail or manufacturing, or for an executive position.
Well, you talked about the idea of like, being able to handle a rapid pace of change and not freak out is a good characteristic of a employee who wants to work in cannabis. But anything else you look for, like in the interview process, that you train sort of your operational leaders to look for as signals of if they're going to be a good hire to make it past the 90-day mark and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say two things really do come to mind. And one of them is core values. You know, when I'm interviewing candidates, a lot of them are excited about the industry. And the first thing they say is, well, I just want to be a part of the cannabis industry. It's growing and it's exciting. But I really encourage, if you're a candidate or a job seeker, go a little bit granular and get deeper. And what I mean by that is really take a look at the company that you are interviewing for, look at their core values, look at their mission statement, see how that aligns with your personal core values and your mission statement in life, and what you truly value. Because when you see that integration right there, I think that's what's going to make a successful, 90 days. And that's what's really going to keep you staying at that company. And I think that's what, it's a benefit to the company and the new hire.
Well, let's look at it from like a advice to job seekers perspective. And
Sure.
I give the advice that it is great that you love the products.
Exactly.
I do too. High five.
Right. We got that down.
Don't lead in with that. Like,
Right.
Educate yourself about the plant and the products and different characteristics of cannabis, and lead with that.
Absolutely.
And secondarily, the room will probably assume, based on how you talk about what you've learned about the plant, that you're interested in it, and you probably are a consumer. But we don't need to lead with that, right? It's still a job, right? Any other tips to people interviewing for a role, whether it's at your company or just in the industry?
Yeah, I would say, one thing we really look at is commitment too. This isn't necessarily a trend to this industry. I think you got to be in it for the long haul, and you really have to take a look at growth, right? You when you talk to the company, talk about the position that you ideally would like to be in now, but then also in the future, where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years? I think if an employer can see that growth is there and that someone is committed to be part of an evolving industry, I think that really sets you apart from candidates as well.
One of the things that I noticed very quickly, in my experience as a headhunter in the tech industry versus the cannabis industry, is for the people working in cannabis, whether you're in a store, whether you're extracting flower into oil, whether you're back office working an HR function, people in this industry love their job. They love coming into work every day, and I think it's this whole alignment thing, especially in today's society, where how you make money, what you're good at, and what makes the world a better place, something you believe in, all can come together in the form of cannabis.
Absolutely.
I think in other industries, you tend to see like that chasm between management and the hourly workforce and things like that. But have you seen something similar in terms of culturally that was almost inspiring after you started?
Yeah. One thing I will say is I'm a huge advocate for the underdog. And I think in this space, you see a lot of the underdogs. And what I mean by that is people that have had a passion for cannabis, whether they're in the corporate world or, they just didn't talk about it because it's been suppressed. It hasn't been as widely accepted. Now you really see those people coming out of the woodwork and really passionate and excited to be part of a movement that, they feel is an extension of who they are. And if they can join that and share their knowledge, you see that passion come out in their work. So that's been really rewarding to see throughout, the interviewing process, and just people in their positions now, just how much more excited they are to come into work.
FlowerHire is focused mainly on like executive and management level positions since we started, but even the stories from like talking to retail leaders that are like, I went to a shop, I talked to the customers in line who were waiting outside in the cold to get in, and what the product did for them and how they described their relationship with the plant, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Absolutely. Right. And that's just a whole nother nuance to this space, right? So on the question of career development, I think that coming into this industry now leads to much rapid acceleration of upward mobility than you would see in a more traditional environment. Let's say a big automotive company. What are you already seeing in terms of like internal promotion and the chance to come in and truly just work hard, be a good person, and punch through and move up?
Yeah, absolutely. You are seeing a lot of that because you see a lot of people wearing different hats. You're wearing multiple hats. So for instance, I'm in HR, but I dabble in marketing too. So I get to be a part of the marketing calls. And to me, I think that is really exciting because you really just use your strengths and your passions, and you can just kind of find your way a lot quicker than if you were to be in a traditional company. You're kind of set in stone in your position. But what I really do enjoy about this industry is that a lot of people have that entrepreneurial spirit where they have a lot of passions, and that's okay. And you can really, just pivot from different areas just based on what your interests are. And it's just a lot easier to navigate than, again, being in a more traditional company.
Right. Well, I think that all the enthusiasm for the industry over the course of time will fade if the industry doesn't live up to its ability to really create the best industry to work in. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of the challenge of it. Now it's novel, and we're against the man, and finally cannabis is here, and people are super excited to be themselves at work, to do something that also defines maybe their personal life in some way. But what do you think, in just your first, we'll just say 6 months in the cannabis industry, does this industry need to figure out in terms of truly living up to the potential of being the best industry to work in?
Yeah, I do. And I think a lot of that does come back to kind of the core values and the development and the learning aspect. So since we are still new in the industry, I don't think the LMS systems are as robust as they could be. But I think that is what's gradually going to make us continue to grow. And as we're developing our people, they're going to want to continue to be part of the movement and grow along with the industry. So I think if we can get a better grasp on that, then you'll really see the enthusiasm just continue.
Well, learning management is in where you put your training modules and your SOPs and your onboarding plans and those type of things. Got it.
Yeah. I think having that be a continuous thing, right? So it's not just, within the first 90 days, you got to get these done. Having that, getting the feedback from employees and understanding what areas do they want to see more of, what do they want to grow personal skills, develop themselves in different areas, and then taking that feedback and creating, training, learning, around that. But I think that's what's going to get people to stay and remain excited about the industry in itself, is, they can kind of be pioneering and creating that foundation along with everyone else in the industry.
Well, last question here. It was a very quick session, and,
I know.
your information has been fantastic. So thank you so much for joining. When I first started recruiting for cannabis, most of the clients we were working with, several years ago, we're still paying cash for payroll. Yeah. Health benefits finally started really being offered in earnest, I think the second half of 2018, when some more solutions came to this space. But it's still hard even for 401k and some of those other, benefits that, full-time employees are used to having. From that perspective, what do you think the biggest sort of gaps are in terms of really building that sort of comprehensive sort of, employer-employee, benefits package and just overall, wellness offering that cannabis still doesn't have available to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have the first thing that we said was people over profits. So benefits were the first thing on our agenda, is to ensure that we can get benefits for everyone and make it accessible. So I think offering that right off the bat is really, really important. And then also giving employees a more stake in understanding the product. So as you're, giving discounts or allowing them to sample different products, they can continue to increase their knowledge base. And I think then they can share that with the customers, and they're continuously growing. So I think that really kind of helps paint a picture of, an environment and an industry that makes it very intriguing for individuals to be a part of.
Klaudia, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're drinking from a fire hose over there, hiring dozens of people a week, it seems like.
Yeah.
But this is Klaudia from Cloud Cannabis in Michigan, a vertically integrated operator. Thank you so much for being part of this talent conference.
Thank you for having me. And if there's any questions, feel free to connect on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yep. See you, Dave. Bye. Bye.